Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. This is day 21 of Oracle Integration Training, and in this session we are going to learn about web services, all the available APIs for Oracle applications, all we are going to cover in this video. In last, we will see how we can create connections in OIC using the web services. So let's begin to the next slide. So as we discussed in this session, we will talk about the web services, type of web services, and yes, we'll go for the difference between SOAP and REST web services, and we'll see some example of APIs available for Oracle integration transactions, and that all we will last will go and create the integration connections, right? So let's move to the slide. So as we know that when we are talking about web services and the API, so it's kind of interface which is providing flexibilities to transform data from one system to another system, or in simple term we can say that a web services or API is a technique by which we can communicate, that our applications can communicate with two different systems. So that's we are going to cover in this session. So in simple term, a web services is a standard way of applications to communicate over the internet, to discuss, to share the data over internet to other systems, often using protocols like HTTP or SOAP. It enables data exchange and functionality sharing between systems, regardless of the programming languages, whatever you can use. Even you can use web services in Java applications, you can web services in C, C++, Python, the VB.NET, and many more. That's you just have to invoke the web services. And when we're talking about API, so it kind of interface, the programming interface is a broader concept that allows softwares, applications to interact with each others. That's same. APIs define the specific endpoints, request, response for task or data exchange. So when we are saying that the request and the response, it is something that when we are invoking any web services or API, and whatever data we are going to pass while invoking, that's called as a request payload. And while when we are invoking any APIs, and in response if we are getting any data, that is specific data called response payload. Web services are a type of API focused on web-based interactions. While APIs can include various protocols and formats, not necessarily web-based only. And when we are saying that APIs generally REST consider in this API, and which having the various methods and all. And simple and common term, that both are a tool that allow different softwares to communicate each other. Let's say that example of that a web services available. So we generally have two kinds of web services available on basically we are working on that one is SOAP, that is known as simple object access protocol, and the rest that we are full form is representational state transfer. Both web services are useful for communicating with two different systems, just like in your mobile application. If you have to communicate with the file server, or you have to communicate with the database servers, you can communicate. Same like example of PCs and all. So let's talk about SOAP web services. SOAP defines the standard XML format, and when we are saying that a standard format, that when we are invoking any SOAP web services, we just have a type of data which we can pass or retrieve is XML format only. It is also define a way building web services. We use web service definition language, that's known as WSDL or WSDL, to define a formats of request and response payload for XML APIs. In SOAP service, defines typically done using the web service definition language, that's known as WSDL. WS defines endpoints, all the operations which we can perform using that SOAP web services, request and the response payload and all. And in OIC, if you want to invoke any SOAP web services, yes, we have SOAP adapters available which can be used while creating the connection, so that with the help of the connections we can invoke any SOAP web services in OIC. In other hand, we have REST API. So REST is an architecture approach, not a protocol like SOAP. It does not define the standard message exchange format, just like XML specifically. We can build REST services with both XML and JSON, And generally we are using JSON in case of REST web services, just for that easy understanding purpose, and it's provide more flexibility, more easy way to understand. That's most effectively, majorly we are using JSON format. Any web services that is defined on principles of REST can be called as a RESTful web services. A RESTful services would use the normal HTTP verbs just like get, put, post, patch, and delete for working different operations to complete the implementations of that APIs. And when we are invoking APIs, we are getting error status, and few status are 404, that say the resource not found, that API we are going to invoke that is not available. 200, that successfully invoked that API. 201, it means the transactions created. 401 is unauthorized, that you invoke that API but the user password you given that was not perfect, not correct, so you will get 401 unauthorized error. 500 is a service error. Sometimes your server is not available for that web services. When you will invoke, you will get that kind of error. Let's talk about the difference between SOAP and the REST web services. So in simple term, SOAP is a protocol, whereas REST is an architecture structure. SOAP stands for Simple Object Access Protocol, that's the definition, and REST stands for Representational State Transfer. SOAP cannot use REST because it's protocol. So when we are saying that SOAP cannot use REST, it means that in the SOAP API or SOAP web services, we cannot have REST call configurations. But in REST, it can invoke SOAP web services because it's a concept that use a protocol like HTTP and all. When we are talking about the format, the data format which we can pass, so we know that SOAP only accept that XML format, whereas if you will talk about the REST, it use the JSON, HTML, XML, and many more. Even it accept the plain text too. In term of security, SOAP web services is more secure than less than REST services. So REST API having the flexibilities to, like, it's easy way to use, it's easy to provide values as a request and response payload, provide flexibility, more flexibility than SOAP. Let's talk about the APIs available for this, available for the Oracle. So Oracle having their own documentation that's called as docs.oracle.com, where they provided all the schemas and API information related to Oracle Fusion applications. Not limited to Fusion applications, all the Oracle's cloud applications, they provided the details or description of this on this docs.oracle.com. So this is the docs.oracle.com website where you can see I opened that supply chain and manufacturing related documentation where we can get that APIs and a schema and really many different operations. The same way when we are saying that, so they having the same REST we can also get from there. We can get SOAP web services from there. For everything, Oracle provided the documentation that we are going to utilize. And when you will navigate to any of the documentation page, you will find few options in case of APIs. If you search for APIs, so you will be able to find the SOAP web services, and you will be able to find the REST APIs. You can see we have SOAP web services for SCM, SOAP web service for common features, and same way REST applications or REST APIs for Oracle Supply Chain Management Cloud, that is SCM only, and the SOAP API for common features in Oracle Fusion applications. So in case of common features, it's like invoking a ESS job, calling the BIP report, or just getting the lookup values from Fusion, assigning the data access to the user. That calls under the common features. And obviously, all the transactions related APIs will be available under the specific modules. That supply chain modules, finance modules, or that procurement modules and all. So here you can see this is the snapshot of the web services available by Oracle for this REST. You can see these are the APIs. You will be able to find that all the REST endpoints we have listed. Same way we have the SOAP web services too. So if you will see, this is the web services or the SOAP REST API provided by Oracle. And here you can see just we are going to get endpoint. You can see the path FSCM REST API resources available quantity details. So this is not the complete URL or complete web services. This is just the endpoint. So what will be your web services? So your web services contain your host details of your Fusion applications. So you can see, for example, this is API for purchase order creation. You can say this is the REST API for purchase order creation. And to make this REST API complete, you just have to append a Fusion URL as a prefix. You can see https faegqeqjr hyphen david tin sas demos and all. You can see this is the same URL used in Oracle Fusion applications. And after that, you can see FSCM REST API. This is the same as we are getting from the documentations. This is the same, right? In the documentation you will get only these details. I will show you that how we can identify and all, that we have options to get the request payload, response payload, all these things, the sample request and response payload from APIs. We will see that one too. Let's talk about that. When we completed our APIs, we completed these APIs completely, and now we have to use these APIs. Obviously we have various tool available in market that you can utilize the tools to invoke these APIs and test that APIs before adding these APIs into integrations. So just like we have, one of the tool is Postman tool, where you can just pass the web services or the API which you have available and just provide the authorizations as authentications, and just click on hit that send button. It will process or it will just invoke your APIs, and whatever response will be there, you will be able to see. That all we are going to cover in our upcoming sessions, where we will see that how we can create all these things. Now, in terms of SOAP web services, Oracle documentation also provide for the SOAP web services. All the SOAP web services available in the doc you can utilize in your development. For example, this is a documentation, a screenshot, which includes the web services or WSDL link for purchase order creation. You can see, and again, if you see, this is the WSDL, that the WSDL URL for the SOAP web services to perform operations on purchase order. And here you can see HTTPS. After that we have server name. So this server name will be replaced by the Fusion host. And how you can replace? So same way, you can see the above one is that your APIs or web services provided by Oracle to invoke or to perform operations on the purchase order. And here you can see the server name will be replaced by Oracle Fusion host. This one fa-q, because HTTPS is already there. The server name will be replaced by the Fusion host, whatever is there. So by the way, you will get your complete visual URL, and that web services you will utilize in your integration. So this is the SOAP UI tools, where we are using these tools to execute or invoke a SOAP web services. And in last, we will create our connections. We will create SOAP connections and REST connection in OIC, so that we can utilize this connection in our integrations. Here you can see, when we created connections, in the connection we have to provide the URL. So this is the REST URL we provided here, and after that we have to provide the authentications, same user and password. Same way for SOAP we have the same, that for the creating the SOAP you have to provide the SOAP USDL. You can see WSDL URL. Either you can upload a file, or you can just provide the URL, and then again you have to provide the ID and password. So that obvious we corrected the connection, that the connection we are going to use in our integration. So let's move to the Oracle Fusion applications, and we'll see that how we can create connections. But before going to create connections, I will show you that how we can find the APIs provided by Oracle at the oracledocs.com. So let's move. So here you can see I have listed down few of the APIs. So this API you can see create and invoice APIs are there. So Oracle provided this API to create API invoices in Oracle Fusion applications. I will give you brief on the navigation of these applications too, but just for brief I am going to explain you here. And this you can see, this is the API URL. This is not the complete URL, this is just a URI or path. You just have to add a Fusion URL here to make this complete URL. And you can see, once you will navigate any of the transactions page, you can see if you will go to the invoices contain the different application, different APIs to perform different operations. You can see apply prepayment on an invoice, calculate tax for an invoice, cancel an invoice, create or cancel an invoice line, create an invoice, delete an invoice, generate distribution for invoice, and lots of operations you can perform under these invoices. It's not limited to invoice. If you want to go for payment, holds, and all various operations are there listed here. You can see all these operations are related to finance module. You can see we are able to see this API is related to finance only, and all the APIs comes under finance. You will be able to find here. You will be able to find the APIs for journal batches. You can see get a journal batch, delete a batch, update a batch, and then many more. You can add attachments, journal headers, get a journals, get all journals, attachments, and all. There are many APIs are there. Even you will see the receivables invoice. If you will expand, you will be able to see the API to create AR invoice. That's the receivables invoice. And whenever you will move any of the API, so as I told you, and we already see that one. So whenever we are getting any REST API from Oracle, that is not the complete API. We are getting this information. In that, we just have to append our Fusion applications URL or host URL. You can see. Then by appending that, our APIs will be ready. So same way you can see this is Fusion applications to create AR invoice. And if you will copy this details here, go to the notepad or any editing tool, and here if you will put, so this is the URI or path only. We have to add our Fusion applications. So this is our Fusion applications, and if you will go to this Fusion application, I will just give you here so that you will be aware that this is the Fusion applications only. Sorry. And yeah, it's taking time to load. So now you can say it's loaded. So I already given the ID password earlier, so that's why it's loaded right now. You can say this is the same URL we will use to come make our APIs available. You can say this is the same UI. So now what we got this API from Oradoc, and just this is our Fusion applications. So we have to append this one with this URL. So now this will be our complete REST API or REST web services, REST API to create AR invoice. So now this is the API we get to know. We have to find the request payload, simple request payload. So if you will go to the document, this is the document, and if you will go below, you can see. So what header we have available for this one? So header is metadata context, REST framework version, and absurd mode. So these are the request header for the APIs which we can use. Supporting media type, that application slash JSON, the JSON format we have to pass the request payload in JSON. And here you can see these all are the attribute details. Attribute details is something that if you will see that bill to custom, bill to contact, and you will see this is the brief details about the bill to contact, that what is the number of character this bill to contacts can contain. So you can say 360 characters. So this column cannot have more than 360 characters of value. So all these basic details related to your APIs are there. Now if you will want to see the request, simple request payload, you can see jump to. Once you will click here, so once you will click here, you will be able to find these options, that the request, response, and few examples. If you will click on request, you will be able to find all the columns related to the request payload. That comes the includes header, supported media, and all. Again, if you will go and see that response, so in response what you will receive, so response type will be JSON only, and the default response, and obvious we can say that have a header having the metadata context, metadata context, and the response. In the response, which all columns you will get. So these all are the columns you will be able to get in response. But this is just for brief of the column, right? You can see the details of the column. But if you want to see the value on the simple request payload, again you just have to go for example. An example, Oracle already provided few details. This is the curl URL to execute your web services or the API, and go below, you can see this is the simple request payload. This is the simple request payload. This request payload will help you to create a AR invoice using this REST API. So if you will copy this request payload here, go to the notepad. It's not copy yet, so let me copy from here only. Now you can see this is our simple request payload. So all these are the attributes or the column which we have to pass while invoking this API. and which method we have to use. So if you will go above, you will be able to see the method as you can see post. So the post method you have to use while invoking this API and with this request payload. So these are the column. It's not mandatory to provide all these columns. So yes, based on your configurations and based on requirement, you can provide few of the columns to create AR invoice in Oracle Fusions. If you have lines, you can obviously you have to provide the lines here, line taxes, line DFF. There are many things you can provide. So at while invoking, you just have to replace this dummy value. These are all the simple values provided by Oracle or the dummy values. You can see the vision operations is a simple business unit, a demo business unit available in the demo instance. So this all information you just have to update based on the requirement or based on your configuration, and you can just hit this into Postman. In next session, we will learn and we will see how we can prepare and how we can create transaction from API and web services. But this insertion will just have a brief on that. Now you get to know about all these things, right? So now it's time how you can identify the values. So this is about REST only. Let's go for SOAP web services too. So this is also REST API for supply chain modules for getting the purchase order. Let's have this is a SOAP web services. You can see SOAP web services for procurement, and here you can see I just open a web services for purchase order. So if you will go to the left hand side, you can see purchase order service version 2. So here you will be able to find two purchase order, the above one purchase order and the purchase order service version 2. Above one having the message as deprecated. So deprecated is something that this is the same APIs to create purchase order, but it was old API. So in upcoming days, Oracle is going to remove this API from their system, and you won't be able to access this further. So that's why they given you notifications, or they just inform you that this purchase order API is deprecated, and in upcoming few updates we will remove this API. So which API you have to use? That's why they added new API called version 2. So in the API, you can see once you will click on this hyperlink, this purchase order service version 2, you can see it's having the brief, the service to operate on a document is known as purchase order, providing a specification and the quantities used to request a supplier to supply a product. So we know that the purchase order is a document which is having the suppliers and the item informations included, that which all these items we want to buy from which suppliers, that mentioned, and in response we have to obviously do payment. For example, purchase order 1357 with supplier Dell for 10 computers. So these are the basic information, and go below you can see this is the service ws or visdal URL. So this is our URL for creating the purchase order, right? So this is our SOAP web services to create purchase order. Here you can see SOAP web services to create. And now again, it is not complete URL. Again, I told you, right? This service name is not the one. We have to replace this service name with our Fusion URL, right? Fusion host. So if you will go for the slide, here I explain this one, right? Yeah, sorry. This one. This is the rest one, and now this one. You can see this is our URL, and this service name will be replaced by Oracle Fusion host name, right? You can see this one. That's way we will be able to complete our web services. And if you will see which one having our host, so this is our host URL for the Oracle Fusion applications. Go below, and here you can see this HTTP is already there. Also I have copied this HTTP, so I will just remove from this server name and we'll make that HTTP this one. Now here we have two backward slash. You can remove any of one or you can let it be the same, not an issue. And this is our web services, the SOAP web services to create or perform operations on purchase order. Now this we will use in SOAP UI to perform actions, and which all columns are there for this API. If you will go below, so these all columns you will be able to find once you will execute this in your URL. And for checking or testing that the web services is available or not, you just have to copy, go to any of the browser and just paste it here. So as these web services or that visual contain various operations, you will be able to find all these operations listed here with the brief on that. You can see here the operations that CSE and all. So there is one more operations that purchase order. Yeah, you can see you have one operations at cancel purchase order, change purchase order, create purchase order. And these operations you will be able to find when you will load this visual into the SOAP UI or the Oracle integrations. And it defines that this input parameters for creating purchase order operations. So this way you can test that your SOAP web services is working fine or not, your visual is correct or not. So now we are done with this SOAP and the rest. But how you will find any of the API, right? How you will navigate to the Fusion applications. So here you can see as we have to search API invoices, and we know that API invoices comes under finance module. So just go to Google, just navigate to docs.oracle.com. So once you will go for docs.oracle.com, here you will be able to find cloud applications. Cloud applications contain Oracle Fusion applications, NetSuites, and different applications. So we have to go for Oracle Fusion applications, and under the Fusion application we have to go for financials. So just click here on the financials. Once you will click on the financials, new page will become, and here you will be able to see the upgrades versions and also the latest one you can see 24D. The latest update is 24D now. In next upcoming days it will come for the new one. That A is already passed, that A is going to come with 25. So 24 is year and D is the quarter. D, C, B, A all are the quarter. And once you will navigate to the page, here you can see as we have to look for API or web services, not for the table, right? So here you can see we have options for APIs and schema. Schema is something that tables, right? Table for Oracle Fusion application. Most of the BIP report developer are looking for that. So once you will click on that, you will be able to find this page, right? This page having the information that the API sections and the schema section. Schema is something you can see table and view for the common features, and table and view related to financials. So we are not going to look for tables, we'll just go and check the APIs. So here you can see we have four more options, that SOAP API or SOAP web services available for financial modules, and the REST web services available for financial modules. So this one is the common one, and I already explained that what is the common features and all. So if you will have a look on this common, so I just open this common here, and let's go for the REST API for Oracle Fusion Financials. If you will click here, in left hand side you will be able to see the indexes where you will find all these APIs available, and in the right hand side is the details for that APIs. So let me search for the invoice. Here you can see when I go for search I am able to see lots of operations related to invoice. Once you will go for this invoice, you will be able to find apply payments and all. Once to explain, you can see create an invoice. If you want to create an invoice, you just have to use this web services and the APIs. This is the request payload for the web services, that API invoice and all. So using this way you can create. So all these things we will cover in our upcoming sessions. And by the way, you get to know that how we can access or we can navigate to that Oracle doc, right? So now let's move to the Oracle Fusion applications, and where we will create one purchase order, and then in next session we will create same purchase order using web services. So this is our home page. Once you will navigate to the home page of Oracle Fusion applications, for creating the purchase order, you have to navigate to the procurement tab. And remember, all these tabs you are able to see, it's based on the roles, as Oracle Fusion applications is working as on RBAC, role based access control. So each and every user having a specific role, and based on that role, user can perform actions and operations in the Fusion applications. So this Calvin Roth user having access to create purchase order, that's why we are able to see these tiles, the tiles related to the purchase order. If suppose I will click, I will open new user. Let me go for incognito, and if I will log into the same Fusion applications. So this is our host. So let's go for Fusion application. You can see this Case Brown is the finance user. So let me open this Case Brown, and the password is, let me copy from here only. And you can see this user will have a different tiles or different tabs to perform different operations in Oracle Fusion applications. I will show you that. So sometimes when you will work on you will start working on a project, so they will give you access for Fusion applications and all. And sometimes if you will not find that sufficient role and privileges to perform any specific operations, don't worry about that. Just you just have to reach to the admin team or the functional team and all, and they will help you to get the desired access and all. You can see when we log in Cache Brown. So let's see that what's the differences we have for Cache Brown. Fee of the operations maybe not there, so let me go for finance. So Calvin Roth having the finance for invoice, and this Casey Brown having finance. Where is finance for this? Casey Brown procurement, receivables, payables. Hey, you can see in the payables we have invoices, but you can see Casey Brown users having the different operations. They having access of payments, payables, dashboard tiles, payment tiles, but this Calvin Road doesn't have the tiles for the payments and all. And there can be lots of different differences, right? So you can it will be based on that the access which they have. Now let's move to the procurement tab to create purchase order. For creating the purchase order, you just have to navigate to this procurement tab and click on this purchase order tiles. So once you will click on the purchase order tiles, a new page will be opened, and in that page you will be able to see the dashboard related to procurement purchase order. And based on the dashboard you can navigate, you can get some idea about the transactions created in Oracle Fusions and all. You can say this is the dashboard. So this dashboard is already created in OTVI reports and all. You can later get to know and learn all this about that. So now you can see we have the left and right hand side, we have the task icon and all. So once you will click on this task icon, you will get lots of tasks. And again, these tasks are again coming from the roles and responsibilities. So as I have to create purchase order, so here you can see in order tab we have that create order. So order documents all are known as purchase order only. So just click on this order, and once you will click on this create order, you will be able to find the page where you have to enter the purchase order details. So when we click on this create purchase order, we get this navigations or this tab where we have to provide the information related to purchase order. So that what is the style of the purchase order? That's purchase order or the blanket purchase order, or something else. So now it will be PO only. So I don't want to do any changes. Procurement BU, this by default is selected US business unit. You can change BU to, I don't want to do any changes here. And here you have to select the supplier. So as this is demo instance, and demo instance they have configuration for lease supplier. I know that, and on all this BU supplier side and all, it will be comes from your configuration only. So in which project you will work, this all information will come based on that. And here you can see I selected supplier, and by selecting the supplier, it's automatically reflected the supplier side, supplier contact, ship to location, bill to location, and all. So all these are the part of configuration. While creating the supplier, we have to create the supplier side too, the contacts and all these values coming from there only. So by default, user is our user, the buyer is our user, currency is there. Just click on create so that it will navigate you to the create page where you have to provide the remaining details, the header details and the line details for the purchase order. So due to that instance is bit slow, it's taking time, but generally it's not taking that much of time. Now you can see our page is opened with the purchase order number, that US1. So again, this purchase order number we are getting is a part of configuration. So based on the configuration, it's automatically generated. You can see as we selected US1 business unit, that's why US1 you are able to see here, because in the configuration of this business unit for the purchase order document sequence, they added that kind of logic too. And here you can see these are the generic information for the header details related to purchase order, where you can provide the purchase order descriptions and basic details. So all this we already entered while when we click on the create one. You can see the bill to location, ship to locations, all these are coming from the supplier setup only, right? You can provide additional contact here, you can provide the description. So all these can be the based on your business requirement, but they want to provide these descriptions and all not. So let's have a description as this is demo PO while session. And now go below, you will be able to find the tab related to terms that obvious what kind of payment term will be there, and like other details like shipping methods and all. So by default it's coming from the setup only. If you want to add attachment to this purchase order, just click on this note and attachment. Here we have to we can provide note to supplier. For example, this is demo notes to supplier. Here notes to receiver if you want to give. So this is demo notes to receivers, and here we can add the attachment. So let's upload any of the attachments. So click here. Once you will click here, you will get options to upload the file. So you can see type is file, or it can be URL, or it can be text. So let's have a file only. You have to select this category, and again this category will be depend on the configuration also. So let's have for suppliers, and here you have to choose the file. So let me add the file as atp.sql. That's file loaded here, right? You can give the file titles or the descriptions, or titles as automatically loaded as a file name. You can change here that atp query, this is description of attachment. And again, attachment can be on line level, or it can be on the header level also. So right now which attachment we given here, it's on header level. So here you can see in the below we have line, schedule, distribution, and the information you will pass here, that will be for the line. So it's possible that one purchase order can have multiple lines. You can see these all are the header information will be same for all purchase order, but this line can multiples. So for adding the lines to the purchase order, you just have to click on this plus. The attachment already added here. Once you will click on plus, new row will be added here, and here it will ask you to provide the lines information. You can see automatically line number is 1. Types of line is goods. You can change this one by click here, and you will be able to see lots of line types there. So let it be good only. And here you can see you have to provide the item number, for which inventory items you want to create purchase order. So you can provide the item number, or you can directly provide the description without providing the item number. So if you want to provide the item number, you have to just put the item here. That's something AS1, something item number is there. I as I remember, let's see. So click here, you will be able to find or search this item number is starting from AS1. And here we can provide the description. So here you can see we have the item with AS1. So let's select the item, any of the item as like AS15000000. Click OK. C1 series and all. You can see revision for this item is A. There can be different things. So based on that item you selected, another values will automatically reflect here. You can see the description of the item, you can change it here also, or let it be the same. Category name is coming as miscellaneous, as we selected the item, that's why this category is coming from item, and we don't have options to change the category. Quantity, so let's provide the quantity as 2. And unit of measure, that how this item is going to count based on that the each count, or the dozen, or for the kg and all. So let it be as each only, EH for each. Now base price, what is the price of this item? So let's make as that 15,000 for the one. So as you will go further a column, so it will calculate that 50,000 into 2 item, that is 30,000. So automatically price will be calculated, and this is the order amount is 30,000. Location by default is coming as settles from the setup only. Requester, you can let it be the same, and again it can be the configuration issue too. So I don't want to provide this requester. If you will go to the schedule, you will find few more options. You will find options for related to date, the request delivery date and the requested. Here you can see we have these two columns. So out of these two columns, any of one is mandatory that you have to provide. Or again it can be the setup also. It can be the based on the setup that it doesn't require to provide the value. Right, so here requested delivery date, that when you want to get the delivery, and that what supplier promise. So out of these two, any of you can provide, or you can provide both. So let me provide that 29. And here remaining column, you can see few of the columns are destination type, that this item where you want to move it, that the item you want to move it to inventory, or it's just like you will receive the item and you will transfer the item somewhere else. So here you can see sub inventory, in which sub inventory we have to provide the items. You can select your sub inventory, and that sub inventory will comes under the inventory, your inventory only. So you can select your sub inventory or let it be the same. While receiving, you can select the sub inventory too. And here you can see we have one more option, the receipt routine. You can see receipt routine. So we have few options, the receipt routine as delivery, direct delivery, inspection required, standard receipt. If you will select all these options, upcoming operations activities related to purchase order will be changed. Direct delivery will have options to directly deliver the item into sub inventory. If you will select the inspection, so after receiving the items in GR in inventory, it will go for inspection, then go for invoicing and all. So that kind of things will be there. Here you can see the approval level, two-way, three-way. So just for brief, I want to say you that whatever information we manually entered here right now, right? All this information we will pass from the API, and the remaining again it will come by default. For example, while creating this one, right, we just provided the procurement BU, request requisition BU, sold to legal entity. It's automatically came. It's not mandatory to provide using API, but we can pass that too. You can see we just selected the supplier side, supplier context automatically came. We can pass also. So just it all these things you will get to know, and you will learn day by day, right? Bill to location, ship to locations, notes, and here you can see the items we selected, description not mandatory to pass because it will automatically come based on the item. We have to select the item types as goods or lines, and here you can see the quantity. Category is also automatically reflect when we will select items. You can see the price and all. So all these will be the information. We will see that how we can create from the front end. So now we provided all the required information here. Just click on submit button so that purchase order will be created. Let me copy this purchase order number and click on submit. If all this information will be fine and your configuration is okay to create, your purchase order will be created and you will get confirmation pop-up message. So it's taking time to load, so let's wait. Here you can see add purchase order created, and we saw the confirmation pop up, and that purchase order, or that's the document, this one was submitted for approval. So whenever we are creating purchase order, first it's going for approval. So based on that approval hierarchy or approval setup you configure, it will just go for approval or directly for the open status. So if you want to see the purchase order which you created and which you already created, just go to manage orders, and here you have to search your purchase order. So here you can see this is the search style where you have to search. So we have the order, so I will just go provide the order here, and that order created by which created in which procurement view you have to pass this one, but it's not mandatory. So I know that it's created in US1 business units, that's why it's there, that's fine. Buyer you can remove and just click on search. So the purchase order number it's created under this BU will be able to see here, and you can see the status is pending approval. So pending approval, it means that this purchase order will be passed to some user who is approval for this business unit, for this purchase order or for this specific items. So if most of the time of the few of the demo applications, it's auto approval. So sometimes after sometimes it will auto openly in the open status. And when any of the purchase order is open status, it means that that's ready to receive in inventory. Purchase order open is something that ready for receiving inventory after that specific time that supplier we given the promise and all. So now after sometimes we will look back and we'll see the status of this purchase order. And again, if your user having the approval and all, you will get a notification here. So this is the notification if you will see, and you can see that we created purchase order and purchase order notifications there. You can see list of notifications are there, that document purchase order US 165010 created implemented 511 are there and all. So let's wait for a few more minutes and let's see that our purchase order is going to be approved or not. And based on that obvious configuration and setup for the approval, your purchase order will be approved by someone who received that notifications, or if your setup having that kind of confirmations that it will automatically approve, so your purchase order will be in open status. So open status is something that your purchase order got approved. And if you want to see that what is the life cycle of the purchase order, that purchase order is received or not, you can see the life cycle here. You will just click here and you will be able to find the purchase order details. So as of now, in the life cycle only we have ordered, so there is no other tab here. It means that purchase order is not yet received. If it will be received, you will be able to find the receipt details here. And the invoice for this purchase order created, you will be able to find the invoice here. So that's all about the purchase order creation from front end. In our next session, we will create purchase order using SOAP web services, and then in after that we will just go and creating the purchase order using any of the using integration. So before ending the session, let's go to the integration where we will create the connections. So this is our integrations. For creating the connections, we have to just navigate to the design and this connections. And here as you can see, we have these two web services. This one is REST web services, another is the SOAP web services here, right? So while creating the connection for REST web services, it's not required to pass all this URL. So while creating the REST connection, we just have to provide the host details, because these all are the URI, and all this URI we know that while configuring the REST connection in OIC we can provide, right? They are asking to provide this value. So let's create the REST connection. So I will copy this host from here and go to the integration part. For creating connection, just click on this create, and here we have to search the connections. So which adapters we have to search adapters, which adapters we have to select. So which system we are going to connect or invoke, we are going to invoke REST API, REST connection, right? So REST services, that's why here we have to search REST. You can see this is the REST. So once you will click here REST, it will ask you the name again. So let me give the name as FOAS REST, REST. And this connection we are going to create as trigger and invoke, so that it can be used on both places, right? So let me use as, or I will use invoke only, because for trigger we already created. So let me select as a invoke REST, FOAS REST invoke, FOAS, let's go REST invoke. See what will I. So this is the REST connection we are going to create. Click on create, and as we are going to invoke REST API using this connection, it will ask that the URL. So URL we already copied, so you have to select that one. It's Open API or that REST API based URL. So I will select REST API based URL. We have to provide the connections URL. So this is our Fusion home, Fusion host URL. And after that you can see we have the authentication. So this is the basic authentication or authentication 2.0 what we have to select here. So as of now this is our basic authentications, right? So I will select this basic authentication. Here we have to provide the user. So for which user you, by which user you create a transaction, you have to use same user, right? And we use that Calvin Roth user, so that by the way only you will be able to create that, your API will be able to perform operations. If your user doesn't have access to create purchase order, you won't be able to create, right, using API too. So that the difference is there. So let's me copy the user. So Calvin Roth is SCM user, and where we have to provide, so we have to provide in Fusion connection. So you can see I given the user. Now we have to provide the password. So for providing the password, again go back, and here is the password. Let me copy and paste. So is publicly accessible, that's why public gateway is there. If it's using agent and it's just restricted by firewalls and all, you won't be able to directly go, you have to then go for agent and all. And now you can see connection percentage is 8%. Just first test this connection, so that if a user and password will be okay and the URL is same, it will move further. And you can see this tested a message. You can see the username and password are not validated as per this test. You must validate the credentials separately before using them in the security policies. You just have to click on save, and your connection will be ready in configure status. And this connection we can utilize in our integration. So in next session we will use same connection. Go back. Now we have to create a REST connection also, right? So just click on create and select the REST adapter. Sorry, we have to create SOAP connection. So I will select SOAP adapter. Here you can see we have the SOAP. So as using this API we are going to invoke SOAP web services or SOAP services. That's why we have to select SOAP here. So when you will select SOAP, it will again ask for the name. So I will give the name FOAS underscore SOAP. Just go to invoke con. Now we will select role as invoke, that using this one we are going to invoke our APIs or web services. Click on create. And once you will click on create, it will ask you to upload the visual, or directly you can provide the URL. So in case of SOAP, we have to provide complete URL, not only for the host. We have to provide complete URL, so that using this connection, the using this connections, that operations related to this can be available, right? And this connection we created for this purchase order services, right? So let me go back and change the name to purchase order, edit info, and here we have options to change the name. So invoke PO connection, let me give the name is PO connection, right? So just click outside. So now our connection name got changed, FOS soap invoke PO con, and here we have to provide the visual URL. So this is our visual URL. Let's copy and provide here. So visual URL is there. Now here we have to again select the security. Optional property is not required. We can skip this one. It's related to the public and all. So the first here we have to select the security type is basic authentications, and no security or OAuth and all. So here we have its basic authentication. I will select basic. We have to provide the user. So again same user we have to provide, as the same user having access to perform operations, user, and now we have to provide the password. So we provided the user and password. Again we have to go and test that the URL and all are fine or not. Again you can see the messages, validate and test, test request and all. So I will just go validate and test, so that both will be done together. This validate is just checking the user and password for this web services, and if everything will be fine, your connection will be in 100% status, so that we can just save and it will be ready for use. Once connection will be done, so you can see configuration got 100%, and we just have to save, so that the status will be changed from draft to configured, and this connection will be ready for use in integrations. Just go back and you will be able to see both connections are here. So let's come to the next session, where we will just first see that how we can create a transaction using the API from any tool, testing tool. That's tool consider as a Postman or the SOAP UI. And in next, then we will see that how we can utilize same in our integration. So thank you so much for joining. If you have any other questions, you can unmute yourself and you can ask, or let's meet in next session. Thank you so much again.